$111,382. That is how much I've spent on mentorship in the past 2 years of my online business journey. And it was the key to me building my 7-figure personal brand, traveling the world, and living life on my terms. But when I was starting out 3 years ago, I barely had money to pay for one mentor. So that's why in today's video, I'm gonna fast track the whole process for you and reveal the most valuable lessons that took me 3 years to learn and cost me over $100,000. And you, my friend, are going to get it for free because I love you. So we're going to cover the 5 key pillars for building a successful personal brand that makes you over 6 figures a year. So personal branding, performance and productivity, marketing, sales, and the final pillar, arguably the most important and most neglected, I will reveal at the end. So the first pillar responsible for building a successful personal brand is personal branding. Who would have thought? Now, you've probably come across my mentor on one of the social media platforms. He's been absolutely blowing up, Dakota. So early in my social media journey, I hired him as my one-on-one mentor, and I even lived with him for 5 months. So I got an even deeper understanding of his philosophy. And my big takeaway was that growing on social media and growing a following isn't about content. It's about the person behind the content. So most people are just spewing facts about niche topics, and that's fine. But if people really just wanted facts, they'd Google it, or I guess they'd use ChatGPT now. But people are on social media for entertainment and connection. So if you really want to grow an audience on social media, you need interesting things to say, and you need to build a connection with your audience. And that comes from sharing your experience, your story, and your opinion. And when you get your audiences invested more in who you are than what you say, you can talk about anything and you can sell anything. And you do this by standing out. So everyone is saying the same thing in the same way. And if you want to grow on social media, you need to lean into what makes you different. For example, I am not super corporate. I'm not super professional. I still get shit done, but I like to post memes. I like to shit post and have a good time. Book number 3 is Storyworthy by Matthew Dix. And that turns a lot of people off and they block me, or, they don't follow me, but it also resonates with a lot of people that are like how I am, and that builds that connection. You don't want to be in the middle. You don't want to be average. You don't want to just blend in. You need to list out your unique hobbies, your unique opinions, and your unique experiences, and use this as the basis for content creation and branding. And if you can't think of anything that makes you unique, ask your friends and family. Say, hey, what do you think I'm good at? Hey, what do you think of when you think of me? And then use that as your basis. And if they can't think of anything, then it's a sign that you need to do more interesting shit. So the second pillar for a successful personal brand is performance and productivity. That is a lot of P's. But when I hired my performance and productivity mentor, Leon Castillo, I was struggling to focus and get into a flow. And I was addicted to checking my phone and would constantly get distracted. But once I hired my mentor, he showed me that everything we do is a system, but our self-perception is at the core of that system that influences everything else. Now, all the productivity gurus out there are touting the same stuff. Use the Eisenhower matrix, set specific goals, avoid multitasking. And that's all fine and dandy, but it's useless if you don't adopt the identity of a high performer. So take Alcoholics Anonymous as an example. They have such a low success rate because they literally get their members to constantly call themselves alcoholics and addicts. And because of that, they view themselves as alcoholics and addicts. So the default behavior is to use alcohol and drugs. So that's why before you try any productivity tips, you need to sit down and write out what you want from life and who you need to become to get there. And then going forward, you become hyper intentional with the labels you place on yourself. And if they don't serve you and where you want to go, you do not use them. Instead, you stack small wins and use those experiences to reinforce the identity of a high performer. Then you'll find the habits and the behaviors will fall into place. Now, the third pillar for a successful personal brand is sales. So before I hired my sales mentor, David Mendez, I would shit my pants on sales calls. I would legit shake. And I would get so worked up in my head that I wouldn't know what to say and I wouldn't even know how to say it. And I was so focused on myself, but that was the problem. I thought the sales process was about selling myself and selling what I had to offer. But sales is about who you're trying to help. So the biggest shift my mentor made for me was putting the focus on the prospect. I stopped talking so much and instead I asked questions. In fact, 80% of what came out of my mouth on sales calls were questions, because I'm not a mind reader and I'm guessing you are not either. So when you ask questions, you're learning more about the other person's pain points and their goals. And the more of an understanding you get of those, the more you can craft your offer around that, the more you can make them realize the value in what you have to offer. Because if you just tell somebody, hey, you have this problem, they're going to reject it. People don't want to be told they have problems. So when you ask questions, you're learning about the other person's pain points and their goals. And the more you get the prospect to talk about them, the more they realize they're not where they want to be and that they need your help. Then when you have to go to tell them more about what you have to offer, you position your product and your services as the perfect solution to their problems and their desires. And this also takes a ton of pressure off yourself because you're not focused on yourself, but you're focused on what your prospect is saying and how you can actually help them. But it all comes down to shutting up and listening. Now, the fourth pillar of a successful personal brand is marketing. And everything you do in life is marketing. The content you create, the clothes you wear, and the stuff you put on your Tinder profile.
Oh, hell no, man.
Everything you do says something about you. And when it comes to online business, it isn't as simple as slapping on a price on a product or a service and watching the dollars roll in. It starts with understanding the person you're trying to serve. Most people don't even ask themselves what their goals or pain points of the people they're trying to serve are. So think about how crazy that is. People will spend months building out a product or craft their whole content around something that they have no idea if people are actually interested in. Then when they go to market their business, they can't get anyone to buy, or if they create content, they can't get anyone to follow them. And that's wasted time, money, and energy that could have been easily avoided if they spent a few days doing market research. And this can be as simple as going to ChatGPT, specifying who your target audience is, then getting it to list out their biggest pain points and their biggest desires. Or even better, actually talk to the people you're trying to help and what their challenges and goals are. So for example, before I opened up my coaching program, I actually offered free consult calls for 30 minutes to whoever. And I just asked about, what are you going through? What challenges are you going through? How can I help? And I noticed patterns, and I was able to craft my program around that solved those pain points. So make sure you are doing market research. And then from there, you craft your product or service or content around solving those pain points and reaching those desires. So great marketing is a result of understanding your customers on a deep level. Do not forget that. And when you do that, the words you use and how you say it become 10 times easier to create. And as a result, you attract more people and you make more sales. It's so simple, but so few people actually take the time to do this. Now, the fifth and final pillar for a successful personal brand is leadership. So a few months ago, I flew to a retreat in Costa Rica to do ayahuasca. And if you don't know what ayahuasca is, basically the final boss of psychedelics. And no, I'm not going to go into some woo-woo law of attraction type hippie stuff, but doing ayahuasca was one of the most profound experiences of my life because it allowed me to close the loop on a ton of childhood stuff. And I felt all the emotions I felt as a kid growing up. The feelings of low self-worth, the humiliation of being known as the fat kid, watching drug addiction slowly kill my mom. I realized it was a gift. So aside from tripping balls and feeling like a potato at times, a reoccurring theme came up, and it was a phrase: lead with your heart. And what that means is being open about sharing your vulnerabilities instead of trying to appear perfect. Because in today's world, there are a lot of macho tough guys, alpha male tough guys that are acting like they're perfect, and they make you feel like trash if you don't have everything figured out.
You're broke! You're fucking poor!
And then they pitch you on a course. Now, I'm not saying to be a little pussy. I mean, in fact, it's quite the opposite. There is strength in talking about your story, your struggles, and your failures, but doing it in a way that you do not play the victim. The going viral is cool and all, but it doesn't come close to the feeling you get when someone messages you after you put out a vulnerable piece of content and they tell you, hey man, what you just put out, it really impacted me and I really appreciate it. Thank you. So when you share your vulnerabilities and show you're not a victim, you not only empower yourself, but you give power to others who are going through similar struggles, and you give them the courage to face it head on. And this is what builds an authentic connection with your audience and those around you. So vulnerability is key to leadership and building an actual connection with your audience as a content creator. And I highly recommend reading the book Models by Mark Manson. It's a dating book, but the way I see it, it's about relationships, and it's actually about vulnerability and being open and sharing who you are with people. So would recommend. So there you have it, boys and girls. Now, if you actually want to build your personal brand and actually get the tactics and strategies to doing so, you can click the video on the screen wherever I'm pointing. I'm pointing all over, but watch that video, and much love. Talk to you later.